the $1 million woman. Yeah, Olivia Smith. How about this? Just about to complete a £1 million move from Liverpool to Arsenal, becoming the highest transfer fee paid for a women's player of all time. How exactly do you explain this rise, AGR? Going from a player who was snubbed by the Canadian women's team around the Olympics, and now the world's most expensive women's player? How do you make sense of this?
That snub continues to just age worse and worse by the day. I know in an 18-player roster, there was a lot of debate, but it's wild that even in the 22, definitely some wild memories of last summer. But ultimately, the football did the talking. She had an excellent debut year at Sporting. Got her feet wet, so to speak, in the European game. Made the move to Liverpool, calculated. You make a move into a top league, but maybe not at too big of a club where immediately she's thrust in as a starter, as a key player. And her performances spoke for themselves as a 20-year-old to lead your team in goals by a considerable margin. She had 9. The next best player was 5. She was kind of the driving force of that offense. It set the move for a club like Arsenal to look and be like, all right, we're going to break the bank. It's telling because there was obviously the reports a few months ago. Lyon were interested in her. That was an exciting potential move. There's some other WSL clubs. Liverpool declined. They said, no, we want a good fee. We paid a club record fee for her. And in the end, Arsenal decided, you know what? Why not throw that kind of money? And it makes you realize the sort of potential she has at just 20. She turns 21 in August. That clearly Arsenal see her. They've just won the Champions League. They're a pretty big club of their own. They see her potentially hitting new heights, which is incredible to imagine.
There is a hint of irony here. The fact that Arsenal won't spend to bring in a top attacking player, something they desperately need. And on the women's side, no problem. No ifs, ands, or buts. Olivia Smith is the target, is the player. What do you make of that, Ollie?
Well, the women's side are the European champions, so maybe there's a little bit of a difference there as well. Look, I think this is incredibly exciting, obviously for Olivia Smith, but also for Canadian soccer to have a player who's being talked about and involved in a move of this magnitude. Alex mentioned some of the other clubs that have been interested. Chelsea have been mentioned. Lyon have been mentioned. Arsenal, I think, are paying this fee for Olivia Smith because they think she can be a superstar. I think that's the long and short of it. And that is something that obviously should be music to every Canadian soccer fan's ears when you talk about an attacking player and the need for a real star attacker in this national team in the wake of Christine Sinclair's retirement. So this is one of those transfers, I think, where when you look at that fee, I'm not going to worry too much about is she going to play first team minutes, regular minutes straight away, because I think when you make that kind of investment, the intent is very clear. And Arsenal are in a situation where, yes, they've got a very strong group of attackers. They're an incredibly strong team, obviously, but they do have a couple of forwards in Beth Mead and Caitlin Ford who are 30 years old, 1 year left on their deal. This may be a situation where you have to be patient and you have to wait for Smith to progress and kind of rise to that level of being a starter with Arsenal. But you just don't pay this kind of money without that intent and without that being the aim in the hopefully medium to long term with this player. And if that's the case, it's an absolute game changer for the Canadian women's national team.
Yeah, no one will say that Olivia Smith is the best player available for transfer in the women's game. It's the age, Ollie. It's the age and the profile. Yeah. That's what it is. The limited times I've seen Olivia Smith, whether it be for Canada or for a club, you can see the star power. Honestly, she's the one player that you look at on the Canadian women's national team. You're like, that could be a star player. I think that's a fair assessment. And this puts Smith really in the focus of the Canadian fan base. Like, when you make a move like this, it also comes with expectations, not only for the club, but for the country as well. Is she ready to be that focal point of the women's national team, Ollie? Is she ready to take that step? I mean, she needs to stay fit first and foremost, but is she ready to take on that kind of role?
Yeah, you mentioned the limited amount we've seen. Since the Pinatar Cup, she's played 33 minutes across 6 games because of the injuries, right? So that's kind of been the big question mark around her. I don't think there's any question Casey Stoney would have given this player a much more prominent role already if that wasn't the case. But it's 2 of them for me. It's Smith going to Arsenal and Jade Rose going to Manchester City. If those 2 players succeed in these moves, they become the cornerstones of the Canadian women's national team. I am pretty confident that Rose is going to be a top player. I just think she's as good as I've seen at that age in terms of a defender in a long time with Canada. Smith, I do think there's more risk, a little bit more kind of upside and downside with attacking players, but clearly based on what she's done in the WSL, top clubs field, she has that kind of potential, and I'm inclined to listen. So I think she's one we need to see a bit more of a consistent run in the team, and hopefully that's going to come in the second half of this year. But you also have to say with the women's national team right now that no one else really, Adriana Leon maybe accepted, is taking a starting position by the scruff of the neck in the attacking third of the pitch. So she's going to get opportunities to be that player.
And AGR, the reason why I didn't mention Jade Rose in the same breath or the same sentence as Olivia Smith, in football, particularly the women's game, you need a finisher. You need those dynamic attacking players in order to make a good team potentially great. That's just the reality of the situation. And that's why I think Olivia Smith and her trajectory and what path she's on right now is probably the most important player for this women's national team moving forward.
100%. Because when I was kind of researching this move yesterday, what stood out is, okay, what does Arsenal expect? They're paying a world record fee. It's not hyperbole to suggest in 4 to 5 years, Arsenal are banking on her potentially being of maybe Ballon d'Or caliber in the women's game, right? Like a player at that upper world-class level. And when you look back with Canada, how many world-class players have they had? Off the top of my head, there's 3, and 2 of them are center backs. It's, Kadisha Buchanan, it's Vanessa Gilles, and of course, Christine Sinclair. And we saw how impactful Sinclair was for the national team. And as soon as she, hit her mid-30s and then retired, there's just been this question of who can step up and replace her. Whereas with center backs, it can be done by a committee. There can be a Jade Rose who can pop up and, maybe join the Buchanan and Gilles in that kind of world-class conversation. Attackers, like you mentioned, they don't exactly grow on trees. And that's what's so exciting about Smith's move, because yes, a move like this, she could flop, but if she's a success, it just elevates that attack to another level because of the skills she can bring, such as an ability to score her own goals, to create her own chances, and to just make things happen. And Arsenal, she'll be able to do that, and then also add other things to her game, such as more playmaking, more final third actions, et cetera, which is also important.